Make it look like New Orleans is the French Quarter. And, you know, now, New Orleans, 365 square miles. And this isn't even all of it. This is like, there's a bit more over there, there's a lot more down here. And here's the French Quarter. And we are in this little building right here. We're going over to St. Louis Cemetery number 1. When we're done, you'll have plenty of time to walk only just 3 blocks. You can go see St. Louis Cemetery number 2 all by yourself. You don't need a guide. If you get really inspired, you can head on down the Esplanade and go to St. Louis Cemetery number 3, which is right next to the Fairgrounds Racecourse. That's the 3rd oldest horse track in the nation. Saratoga and Kentucky Derby.
Right.
Yeah, Churchill Downs, yeah. And so, that's where we have Jazz Fest. But no Jazz Fest this weekend. This weekend we've got what I think is a new festival. I've never heard of it before. It's called the Rock and Rouge Fest, and that's going to be right over here at the U.S. Mint. It's all women rock and rollers, women bands, female bands, stuff.
That's so rare.
And yeah, well, that's what we're doing. It's called Rock and Rouge. And well, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be like all of our little off-season festivals. Basically, hot food, cold beer, free live music. So, you know, so check that out. That'll be today and tomorrow at the Mint. And like I said, I'm not sure. This could be the first year. I've never heard of it before. So you might be like, you're like, I was there for the first one. Or maybe it's the second. I don't know. I've never heard of it. And I usually know all of these little festivals. Especially at the Mint, because the bus goes right by there. So if something's going on, we know about it. Okay, we're going over the cemetery. And I want you all to feel free to take as many pictures as you like, but we do all have to stick together. There's no going wandering off all by yourself. They're getting picky about this, and if they find you without your guide, they'll escort you out. And then you'll be sad. And we can't have people being sad during the Rock and Rouge Festival. Right. So, okay. It's actually torn down in favor of the cemetery. It all started with a really bad year. The year was 1788. And that year, we kicked that off, boom, Good Friday with the Great Fire of New Orleans. 856 buildings, gone. 4/5 of the city burned to the ground. If that wasn't bad enough, while everyone was rebuilding, a couple months later, the flood of 1788, the entire city inundated with water. Now, back then, that, you know, that water doesn't go away very quickly. We don't have modern pumps like we have today. It stagnates, it breeds a plague of mosquitoes, which will then bring the actual plague of yellow fever. Yes, so in 1788, nobody was calling this the Big Easy. So, yes. The loss of life that year was so great that our original cemetery, St. Peter's Cemetery, 1 block in-ground cemetery, filled up. And that's when the Spanish, who owned the city at the time, said, no, you cannot continue to bury in this manner. This is highly inefficient. You don't have enough room. We're going to show you the above-ground tomb system of burial. And in 1789, St. Louis Cemetery number 1, and our first above-ground tombs appeared. Oh. It was consecrated a Catholic cemetery, and is still today a functioning cemetery. We just had an entombment just a couple weeks ago. So, what we have all around us, various types of tombs. The standalone tombs here, these are called family tombs. The ones in the wall are, you guessed it, wall vaults. And the great big ones on the skyline are called society tombs. And we're going to talk about all of those and more, but I always start here with the Delaney exposure plate. He will then go to work on the plaster, scraping away all the plaster till he exposes the brick. Then go to work on the brick, pull out 1 or 2 bricks. That will create a hole into the tomb through which all your roaches can come streaming out. Yes, our roaches fly. All of our bugs fly. And our caterpillars sting. So just don't touch anything. So All right, so brick by brick by brick, he opens up the face of the tomb. He then dons a big hunking pair of gloves. He reaches out inside. He grasps what remains of the coffin, dumps its contents to the inside, gives it a shake. The coffin's taken away and destroyed, and then with a combination of rakes and brushes, he sweeps what remains of the corpse into the back of the tomb. And you're now ready for your next entombment. Because over that year and a day, when it gets to be 100 degrees out here for lengthy periods of time, such as August, and apparently now May and June, and you have the low at night of 86. These things don't cool down. Heat up 2-3. Nicknamed oven balls. And you will find that when you open the tomb, all you're left with, it's about a pound and a half or so of charred ashen flesh and minerals and bones. The body's undergone a very rapid form of decomposition amounting to nothing more than that. By the way, bones are very difficult to get rid of. Ask any serial killer. Here, you just shove the cremains in the back and you keep on. So what we call a stepped tomb. Now, a stepped tomb harkens back to the oldest style of burial known to man. Take the dead guy, throw him on the ground, cover him with rocks. Bam! Tomb. Here, a little bit different. Here what you do is you dig down about a foot, put a layer of bricks, put the coffin on top of that, then you start piling bricks up, up, little pattern you enjoy, slather it over with plaster, chunk in the cross, voila, stepped tomb. No longer when you build a tomb can they be plaster and brick. Now they have to be cement and rebar. And perpetual care, no longer an option. You must have perpetual care. So, most people don't see this name and think of southern Louisiana. They think of North Carolina, or the Marine Stream, Camp Lejeune. But it's same family, different branches. But you'll know the branch of the Louisiana family because they pronounce it, because they're in the west, near Texas. They pronounce it Lejeune. Yeah, I don't know where the R comes from, but yeah, so the Lejeune. Okay, so our second newest tomb is this big. We brushed up on their Latin.
It's something of one.
Yes, it is. You're right. It's all from
Sorry, I'm
one.
photobombing.
So there are no human remains in that tomb. Merely the remains of his career. Yeah. Saw Ghost Rider 2?
Yeah.
Or
We did.
1.
Yeah, we were done.
Yeah, okay, so, all right. Now, second oldest. Mother and daughter buried side by side, 1803. Child-sized coffin, child-sized tomb. And child-sized tombs manage to be both cute and creepy at the same time. Just like actual children. Yes, and so they are on their motorcycle trip, going cross country, coming here to New Orleans, going to the Mardi Gras. They come here to the cemetery, they have their own special trip going on. and Peter Fonda's working out mother issues. He's like, why did you leave? And Jack Nicholson and Karen Black and Tony Basil getting naked and smoking and drinking and doing all sorts of naughty things. And needless to say, the Catholic Church rather frowned upon the contents of that thing. We are not amused. Yes, and because of that, they banned all commercial filming from all Catholic cemeteries. So if you see a movie or a TV show filmed here, it's almost always in Lafayette Cemetery, because that's a city cemetery in the Garden District.
And it just doesn't matter in the city.
Yeah, so. They don't care about the content of the film. They care about the content of the check.
Yeah, the account.
Yeah. They actually, they did, I think it was Jonah Hex, and they actually let, the people paid the city to let the cemetery be unmaintained for 3 months. So it got an old, overgrown look.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then they had to pay for it to be cleaned up.
Yeah, but that, well, yeah. Okay, so what these big tombs are, these are called society tombs. And what they refer to are mutual aid societies. So brace yourselves. But a long time ago, Americans actually believed it was their Christian duty to care for the weaker members of their community. Yes, and there was no government aid. So they made their own aid societies to provide aid to the widows, the orphans, the sick, the elderly, the poor, the unemployed, the displaced, the newly immigrated, and the homeless. And these aid societies were based off of a mutual interest, so you have a mutual aid society. Very typically, religious interests. The two largest religious aid societies that ever existed are still around today, and you probably know them pretty well. St. Vincent de Paul and Salvation Army. Now, here, your secular societies very often based around, your career choice, and especially the more dangerous careers. Truckers. Yeah, Fisherman Society, Fireman Society, and the most dangerous of all, Bartender Waiter Society. And of course, we are a nation of immigrants, second largest port. So, immigrant societies. Here you have the Italian society too. Portuguese. It took 4 years to go to the Circuit Court of Appeals, the United States Supreme Court, where the justices would hand down the most infamous of decisions, 7-1 with one abstention, that yes, it is constitutional to separate under racial lines as long as facilities are provided for equally. And what we all remember, separate but equal. That's the tagline from high school. So that led to the stricter enforcement and oftentimes the expansion of the racist, segregationist, Jim Crow era laws. That you would go into the cemetery. You go to the tomb of Marie Laveau. You put 3 X's on it and kick it and up and spin around and jump up and clap your hands and you would receive a wish. We believe this ancient voodoo legend was started in the 50s, maybe the 60s, by tour guides falling victim to the telephone game, where, you hear me tell it and then you tell it.
Yeah.
By the time it gets to you, it's all entirely different. Because there were original accounts of people going into the cemetery after she was entombed. They would go to her grave, take a shout, make the sign of the cross, and then leave behind a token or a coin, some sort of offering, and ask her for protection or healing or guidance. And somewhere along the line, the cross turned into an X, and then the X turned into 3 X's, and then the knocking, and then the dancing, and the shell turned into destructive things like darn clothes. It's one of them. Many people say, oh, this voodoo looks a lot like this other religion. No, it's the other way around. That other religion looks a lot like voodoo. And contrary to what you learn from Hollywood, which is always so incredibly accurate, you have to remember that voodoo is a religion of a slave race of peoples. These people's lives are nothing but pain, suffering, and death at the hands of a Christian overlord. They are not engaging in a religion to promote more pain, suffering, and death in the world. They have plenty. Quite the opposite. The voodoo religion has always revolved around healing, empowerment, and the big one, balance. Maintaining balance with nature. Maintaining balance with the spirits that surround us every day. And maintaining balance with each other. Community, tribe, very big in voodoo. Family, super big in voodoo. And not just your immediate family or your extended family. Your ancestors are important. And in a strange series of sevens, 1987, Pope John Paul II comes to New Orleans, gives a huge mass in the Dome, and gives a speech in front of the church where he mentions voodoo as a sister religion. And in 1997, he officially apologizes to all who practice the voodoo religion who received any persecution at the hands of any member of the Catholic Church. And in 2007, not to be outdone, the next pope goes to Benin and visits with voodoo practitioners, their leaders, and again refers to it as a sister religion. What they mean by sister religion, I'm not sure, because I don't have the same documents popes have. But I've always considered them a complementary religions, where you practice them both together, because one has something the other hasn't, and one does something the other doesn't. And when you put them together, you know, you get the whole picture. So that one Charles Duffy, a wealthy and landed free color. Now, due to a very liberal set of slave laws, unlike the Americans, where slavery was a death sentence, French and Spanish, there were many avenues to gain your freedom. By 1850s, 1/3 of the population of New Orleans was free persons of color. And that meant, as a free person of color, she could move about freely. She could acquire and retain wealth. She was moderately educated, but, you know, not too much different from anyone at the time. Read a little, wrote a little, spoke a bit of 3 languages, primarily French, but Spanish and English as well. And owned a business where she plied her trade. By the way, remember, this is a woman owning, and a woman of color owning a business. She employed herself as a hairdresser. And it is through hairdressing that she came to practice voodoo. How does that work? Well, hairdressing back then, a little bit different than it is today. Hairdressing back then is more along the lines of the medieval barber, where you go to your hairdresser, not just to get your bangs cut, but you also go for healing. Because hairdressers and barbers back then, the people you found, were very often also your herbalists, your root doctors, your medicine men and women, apothecaries, doulas and midwives. These people knew the healing arts. Unlike the people who were calling themselves doctors, because that's just what they were doing, calling themselves doctors. Rich, idle white men who could afford a couple chemicals and a couple books. And boom, I'm a doctor. You know, you want to see how crazy it gets, or it got, it did. This is St. Louis Street, so go down St. Louis to Charter. Take a left, Pharmacy Museum, only $5. They give a talk at 1 o'clock, scare the bejesus out of you what people thought medicine was. You know, oh my God, you've got, look at you, you've got the fever and the body aches and the chills and whatnot. Oh, all of the signs of the flu. Here, drink mercury. That will help.
Yeah. That sounds like medicine today.
And so, to learn the actual healing arts, she went to the most well-known, widely acclaimed healer in the city, a woman by the name of Sanite Dede. Now, Sanite Dede just happened to be our first voodoo queen. And so she takes her under her wing. She introduces her to the healing arts. She takes to it like a fish to water. She masters everything thrown at her. And just soaks it up like a sponge and starts to go beyond what she's been taught, creating her own healing techniques. And Dede notices and she says, this child, she has the power. And so she indoctrinates her into the religion. And she takes to that like a fish to water and very quickly rises through the ranks, becomes a priestess in her own right. And when Dede grows elderly and no longer wishes to lead the practice, she has the torch to Marie Laveau, who rises up to become the most powerful priestess in the entire area. She becomes voodoo queen. All during this time, a devout and practicing Catholic. She goes to Mass every day, married in a Catholic ceremony. All her children are baptized in the Catholic Church. She is to this day buried in a Catholic cemetery. This is not unusual. Credit, you have got to use my name.
Okay.
You don't believe how many times morning meeting and the boss is like, hey, look, we got a 5-star review on TripAdvisor. I rode the bus. I did the cemetery tour. My tour guide was great. That gets me 2 things, Jack and Squat. And Jack just left town. So, if you enjoy the tour, my name is Charles. If you did not enjoy the tour, my name is Howard. And to help you remember, we have created Creative Us Buzz. Got the name, these are places you can leave the review, and we have unburdened you from creativity and created our own hashtags. Okay. So, because everybody loves hashtags. Bye.